do.
You're going to cue me? You're going to cue me, right?
Okay, you're going to take it in? Okay. Yeah.
Alright. This one's good.
It's a real estate revolution with your host, Victoria Riva, the Riva regulars, special guests, and your call-in comments. Welcome to the Real Estate Rivalution. Rivalution.
Hello and welcome to the Real Estate Rivalution. We're here every Wednesday at 6 p.m. on 1700 AM WRCR and live on Facebook at facebook.com/Victoria Riva. And you could also call in to join the discussion at 845-362-0013. My name's Tony Mazzulli and I'm filling in for the real big deal, Victoria Riva. She's not here today, so I'm going to be hosting with my pal J. Philip Ferranda.
Hello.
How are you, Phil?
I'm great. How are you doing?
Good. Good Labor Day weekend?
I had a great Labor Day weekend that was very devoid of labor.
Good. That's always good. No more white pants for you then, huh?
Unlike yourself, I can't pull it off.
So we are here. Today's an interesting topic. It's marriage and divorce, how it affects your real estate. So we are joined by our special guest, Marco Fava. So before we introduce our guest, Phil, what are your thoughts on tonight's topic?
Okay, well, it's close to my heart. I am just at the end of what they call a collaborative divorce. I've sold a number of homes for divorcing couples, and this is no walk in the park. Divorce is a big deal, and it requires the best of professionals' advocacy. So this should be a very, very riveting piece of subject matter for people that are touched by divorce.
Definitely, definitely. So, without further ado, we are joined by our special guest, matrimonial attorney Marco Fava. So, Marco, tell us a little bit about yourself and how matrimonial law and real estate relate to each other.
Well, thank you first for having me on the show. You know, matrimonial law and real estate go hand in hand. You know, generally there are a few topics that the parties go through in a divorce. There's custody, child support, maybe maintenance, and equitable distribution. When we talk about equitable distribution, for most parties, the biggest asset in their marriage is their home. And so you try to figure out, what are we going to do with this asset and how are we going to divide it? Does one party get to stay in? Does the other party have to leave? Do we sell it and split the proceeds? So it does affect the people's lives deeply. So it is important to have advocacy, great real estate agents who know what they're doing in this time of trial, tribulations, and it's contested also. So I think everyone needs to be on the same page and they need to know what they're doing.
And there's not one way to skin a cat with this. Now, you've been doing this for a while. You've been doing this since 2010.
Correct.
Okay, so there's no way, you know, you go to the gas station, you get out of your car, and you put gas in and you pay. There's no one way to do divorce. There's all kinds of different methodologies, or you can litigate it. There's collaborative divorces, there's mediated divorces. Talk about, for the people out there, how many different categories there might be.
I mean, we can start off with the simplest way. A pure uncontested, where the two parties sit down and they can hash out all their issues together, and then they go see an attorney and say, listen, please put this down in an agreement for us. We have been able to resolve all our issues, from custody, child support, equitable distribution, what we're going to do with our home, if it's going to be sold, who stays in it. That's one way. Then you have mediation or collaborative, where at times you can go to one mediator, and that mediator doesn't provide you with legal advice. All that mediator does is he listens to both parties. Maybe both parties are not represented. Let's say they're not. The mediator listens to both parties' sides and says, well, I want this. I want to stay in the house. And let's say the other spouse says, well, I can't afford to let you stay in the house because my name is on the mortgage and you don't have enough equity or finances to refinance. And so what the mediator does, he tries to strike a compromise between the two parties. And then, if they're able to, and all parties are in agreement, they put it down into a stipulation of settlement or separation agreement.
Okay.
Another way is collaborative, where you have a mediator and possibly both parties are represented by attorneys, and there they try to come to a resolution, almost like a mediation. And then there's the fun way of doing it, which is litigation. You know, if you like a circus and you like fighting, then litigation is your route, and that can be very costly and expensive. And I think if people really take the emotion out of it and you boil it down to its core, these are simple decisions that you make every day in your life. Only now you've thrown emotion into it, and now it's clouded your judgment. If you go to court, you can be there for 2 to 3 years, and you could wind up in a trial and possibly not get the results that you wanted. So if you can, always try to settle the matter, because you might be able to get more of the things that you want than when you go to trial, and leave it up to a third party that knows nothing about either of you.
Now, what would you say the percentage of cases actually go to litigation?
I think the percentage of cases that go to litigation, you know, overall, if you take everyone, probably about 1 to 3%, you know, not many at all. In my practice, I would say probably it's higher, probably about 30% of my cases go to trial. They're very highly contested, but generally about 1 to 3%, not many go to trial.
I'd rather be in the 99%.
I agree with you. I think people should resolve the issues themselves, because when you enter into an agreement, you know that you have discussed the points, you've given up some things, and you've gained some things. I'm always of the opinion you never roll the dice with a third party who knows nothing about your life, nothing about your finances. All they know is what they hear for those couple of days of trial and in your attorney's post-brief memorandums, and then they make a decision pursuant to law, not if this is fair, if this is the law, here's what I have to do.
Now, does a prenup really take care of all litigation, or do you, in some certain prenup situations, you still have to go to litigation?
Well, prenup does resolve issues. You might have to go to litigation sometimes on a prenup on the issue of whether the prenup is valid or not.
Wow.
There are times where people contest, say, I signed the prenup under duress. You know, a perfect example, I had a lady who came in about 2 months ago and said, you know, we started the divorce action and everything, and she says, well, my husband got a prenup. However, I signed it under duress. And so I started asking her, I said, well, what do you mean you signed it under duress? Well, and I kid you not, you can't make this stuff up when I tell you. She signed it on the morning of the wedding. He presented it to her and said, you know, here is the prenup, and please sign it, otherwise we're not getting married. And so there you go. So you can't make this up. So that, in this particular case, is contested.
Talk about foreshadowing.
Foreshadowing, right.
I mean, she's got enough to do on the day of her wedding without having to worry about a prenup. So that's a little bit of an 11th hour thing.
Right.
Yeah.
So what this all boils down to is this. At the end of the day, there's a house involved because people live indoors.
Correct.
All right? At least in our society. All right? So something has to be done with the property. Either one of them is going to stay, because they're not going to both live under the same roof. That's not how divorce works.
Only one time in my 6 years has both parties lived under the same roof.
I hope it was an apartment building. But they're going to have to sell the house. And this is where it's important that the real estate professional have some cognizance, have some understanding that this is not a regular walk through a transaction. This is going to be laden with different problems, different challenges, different obstacles, different concerns, different sources of stress that they need to address. So let's talk about that. What would be some best practices, for example, for a real estate agent to have if they're thinking about listing a property for a couple that is undergoing a divorce?
I think the first thing a real estate agent should do when considering taking on a property that's laden with many minefields is they need to look at the parties' settlement agreement. That's going to be the guiding principle in all this. In my agreement, I immediately state who the broker will be. Possibly, you know, I could say that, you know, XYZ will be the brokers for the parties, or the parties will each pick an individual broker, and then those two brokers will pick another broker. So you need to go to the parties' agreement, because that's going to be your roadmap through this transaction.
So, question: you said the settlement agreement. That's once a divorce is already going forward, right? That's not a prenup.
No, a settlement agreement is usually at the end of a divorce where the parties have agreed to what they're going to do. So a settlement is that the parties have resolved all their outstanding issues. So that's at the end of a divorce. A prenup is prior to you even getting married.
So a broker wouldn't come in until that's done? That agreement's done?
Correct, because what there is when you start a divorce action, especially in the courts, there's something called an automatic stay. And neither party can encumber a property, sell a property without court order, or that both parties agree to having such property sold.
Okay.
So unless you get a court order that says the house has to be sold immediately, and that could happen, that could be in a situation where the house perhaps is in foreclosure and there's still equity, so the court might say, okay, and the parties agree to it, let's get the house on the market, let's get it sold, let's see if we can get these people some money in their pocket after the sale. However, you can't do this on your own. So a settlement agreement usually is at the end, and that will be your roadmap for the agent. So they should look at that to see what the house should be listed for. In my agreements, I also put every 60 days there's a reduction of 3%. I also put in my agreements that if you get an offer within 5% of the asking price, it's an automatic sale. Mm-hmm. There's no question on either party to say, oh, I don't like it, it's too off from the price. If it's within 5% of the sale price, it's the done deal. We're entering contract.
Given that the emotions that are at play in a divorce, because two of the most emotional things that occur in anybody's life are a divorce, which hopefully they don't have to do,
Hopefully
and
not.
the sale of real estate, which I hope they do a lot with us, right, Tony? But you've got the confluence of two really emotional events. So having something in the agreement that, you know, if it's within 3, 4, 5% of the asking price, you are compelled to act by agreement. Right? That takes a lot of the emotion out of it. And has that been successful for you, that practice?
That has been successful, and that's what I try to do in my agreements. I try to leave nothing open to discussion. Generally, people that get a divorce.
We are back. Welcome to the Real Estate Revolution here at 1700 AM WRCR. We are talking with Marco Favo, renowned divorce attorney. We're talking about the ramifications of divorce on specifically real estate, and you know, we were talking during the break about prenuptial agreements and how soon you should enter them in. I guess the day of the wedding is out, right? You don't bring it up the day of the wedding. You want to start a little bit sooner.
Yeah, I don't think you want to bring it up the day of the wedding.
Okay, so give it when you know you're a romantic guy like Tony, and you're afraid of getting hit over the head the day of the wedding like me. How soon after the glitter glow of getting engaged, and how far before the wedding, should you talk about a prenup with your betrothed? It's not a romantic thing, is it?
It's not a romantic topic at all. Obviously, we're all raised that marriage is beautiful, it's going to last forever. But the reality is, half of the marriages in this country end up in divorce. So I think it's a topic to be discussed. Definitely don't want to do it the day of the marriage. Most of my prenups show up at my office about 3 to 4 days before their marriage. It says,
oh my God,
I immediately need a prenup.
Is that under duress?
Not, you know, it's an argument to be made at that point if you go to court one day. If they both have attorneys, generally not. However, what I suggest is you definitely should have that discussion with your spouse to be at least 2 to 3 months before the wedding. You know, so that you have time to disclose all your assets, give him or her or a copy of your assets, and they do the same to you, so you both know, and you both get independent counsel. Do not use the same attorney. If you want the prenup thrown out, go see the same attorney and you'll get it thrown out. Definitely get different attorneys, and I think if you do it 2 or 3 months out, you're safe, because then everyone has had an opportunity to look at the agreement, review it, make changes to it. So definitely 2 to 3 months. I mean, I just went to see a couple that, I just met with the young lady. She's getting married in February, and we've already started doing their prenup. Both of them are going to get married in California. I've already spoken to her attorney. We've already exchanged 2 drafts of the agreement.
So you're his attorney, and you're
actually no. It's two young ladies. Who I'm looking
okay, so
for.
you're the other one's attorney, though.
I'm one of the spouse's attorneys. Yes.
Right. Okay. Gotcha. All right. So that's shame on me for assuming that. Okay. So you had said a really good metaphor, which was, would you enter into the courts look at this as a business arrangement, marriage, sadly, and would you enter into a business partnership without an operating agreement?
Right. I mean, that's really it. I mean, I don't know if you have a partner in your business. Would you enter into a partnership with me without an operating agreement, knowing an exit strategy?
No, you're right, and I do have a business partner, and we have things spelled out. But that's a great point, and that is you don't enter into a business relationship without some sort of parameter or agreement in writing that you can both refer back to, if only to avoid a misunderstanding later on.
And that's all this is. This is a rule book. That's all it is. You set forth the parameters. Just as in an operating agreement, you have an exit strategy. If you want out, here's how much you're going to get, or here's how we're going to evaluate the business, here's how we're going to do things. That's what a prenup does. It says, here's how we're going to divide these properties, or these assets that we have, inheritances and all. And it just sets things in a clean manner, and you're both thinking rational at this time. You're not emotional at this time.
Yeah. So how do you open up the conversation to that? Just, I mean, because it's very, it's not going to be an easy conversation, of course. We just say, hey, honey, we need to talk. Like, any tips on opening that conversation?
I think it's a sit down. I think the first thing you need to be is honest and upfront with your spouse. I think you need to make them understand. You need to make them understand what's going on, what you need, and why you want to enter into this agreement. So I think it's just having an open conversation. I don't think there's any special way of starting it. I think it's just telling them, look, I have these properties. I want to protect them in this manner. And I think if you sit down with them way in advance, they'll understand, because both men and women today are getting married later and later in life. And they could be coming into these marriages with certain assets, whether they be homes, perhaps investment,
kids.
So I think it's a discussion to have. I think it's just being candid with each other and not beating around the bush.
What are some of the crazier things that you've seen regarding real estate?
Well,
without divulging confidential.
I mean, today is a perfect example. Today, we've had a house on the market for over a year and a half, and one of the spouses, and they haven't gotten a bite. Now, their agreement, who wrote it, the attorney who wrote it, they didn't set forth any parameters. All they said is they can't go below this asking price. But the realtor has said to both parties, look, the price that you set forth as the floor, it's still high. I can't sell this house. They haven't got a bite. And we have one spouse now saying, I'm not going below this price. And the reason being is, the longer the house doesn't sell, the longer she stays in the house. So, and now we're back in court litigating, asking for a judge to modify their agreement so that the broker can list it at the price that she deems to be the appropriate price for that particular market. So, I mean, that's one of the stories just this morning that we've had.
That's pretty daunting. I mean, to seeing all these divorces, all these problems, I mean, how could you ever think of getting married? Are you single?
You put me on the spot because, my girlfriend's listening right now, so now you put me on the spot. Love is a beautiful thing. No. It really is. Look, I look at my parents, they've made it through. I look at my aunts and uncles, and, sometimes things happen, and sometimes you grow apart. But there's no reason, that you shouldn't try getting married if you find the right one, or you believe you found the right one.
So let me talk about something that I'm seeing that's a little peculiar in our current market, and that is this. There are people who are essentially separated. The marriage is over, but they still remain under one roof because they believe they can't sell yet. Are you seeing that?
First and foremost, let's take the word separated. Separated means that you're still married, but you just separated. Or divorce means you're fully, but you're living on the same roof.
Right.
I've only seen it once in my practice. The reason being, again, is in this particular case, like I told you, the parties actually still live in the same home. The wife occupies the top floor, the husband occupies the basement apartment. And the reason being is because neither of them could, the house was in foreclosure, and they couldn't afford to do a short sale because there would be nothing. So the best option when we went before the judge and discussing it between the attorneys was let them write it out. And let them live together, because neither of them at this point could afford rent or anything. So is it something that you'd like to do? No, but sometimes that's your only choice. And people nowadays still, with the houses that are in foreclosure and all, sometimes they don't have the funds to move or to rent another piece of property, another apartment or another house. So they're stuck in living together. Yeah, I've seen that a few times in other cases also.
Got it. Okay, so, and I think when the market becomes healthier or property values appreciate enough, then they, by agreement, they will put it on the market and just go back to the original plan, which we talked about here, which is to put it on the market, do the incremental price reductions. If there is a price within 2-5% of the asking price, that triggers the contract, and so on and so forth.
Correct. Like I said, you follow that agreement. That agreement will guide you. These are my agreements. My agreements, I try to leave very little up to the parties. We try to make it very meticulous, step by step. Here's what's going to happen, so that there is no question. And then if one party has enough to buy the other party, they can buy them out, you know. But the agreement will dictate everything. If you have a good written agreement, it really can avoid a lot of headaches later on.
Okay. Tony?
Yeah, what's the best way to actually hold real estate? Say we're married. Is it was it tenants by the entirety? Is that how typically, if you're purchasing an investment property or a house, is that how it's typically held once you get into marriage?
There's many ways of holding a piece of property. Tenants in common, joint tenants with rights of survivorship, and tenancy by the entirety. Joint tenants with rights of survivorship is a way to do it when you're married, where it says, look, when I pass away, my spouse will get the other 50%. And then there's tenancy by the entirety that does the same exact thing as joint tenants with rights of survivorship, except there's a little caveat. If I get married, let's say to my girlfriend, and I have debt galore, and I have creditors that attach to my 50% of the home, if I pass away, my wife will inherit that 50%, and the creditors cannot follow my 50% at that time. So I think if you're a married couple, you should definitely do tenancy by the entirety to protect the other spouse from creditors upon your passing or that. I think that's the best way of doing it.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why you want a good attorney.
I appreciate it.
All right, so because that is a big deal, because that little piece of advice could save people tens of thousands of dollars over, you know, a simple mistake because somebody wasn't paying attention or they were just doing the rubber stamp thing.
Right. You know, it's not even a mistake. It's just sometimes people don't even know. You know, like they say, well, I've heard joint tenants with rights of survivorship, so let's just put that down. Again, being meticulous in what you do, I think, as a realtor, as an attorney, I think a lot of times people just say, well, I can do this, you know, how hard can it be? You need to be meticulous in your profession, in your practice. You know, I think real estate agents should understand that this is a volatile time in people's lives, and they need to, you might have multiple brokers, multiple attorneys, because the parties can't agree on anything. So I think, and attorneys too, when you're dealing with a real estate closing that involves people who are getting divorced, talk to their divorce attorney. Find out what happened to the divorce. What's the party's relationship like? You know, can't give you confidential information, but we can give you a history of what's going on in the background.
You could guide the agent for sure.
Right.
Okay, so that's an interesting thing that you bring up, because in a divorce, and this is something that makes divorce a little different if you're sitting in my chair as a real estate broker, there can actually be a real estate broker for one spouse and a real estate broker for the other spouse. There can actually be two real estate brokers selling the property.
And there can be two attorneys.
And there can be two attorneys, of course, because each of the couple wishes to have their own exclusive representation.
Correct.
All right? That's not something you see in a regular sale. The other thing that is probably worth bringing up that I see as a broker is that if you are a newer agent or you're inexperienced with, this is a pet peeve of mine, if you're a newer agent with no experience in a divorce, you should probably not cut your teeth on the backs of those consumers. You should probably get help from a more experienced agent in your company, or refer it out to an agent with more experience, because the consumer deserves someone with experience working on this.
I agree 100%. I mean, you know, now I sit here and I speak to you and I'm able to say things, but you know, my first rodeo, I gave away a lot of divorces when I first started, and I asked other attorneys, I'll work it for free. I just want to be able to sit and watch. I mean, I've been mentored by a lot of great attorneys, and I've learned, and they've let me cut their teeth on emotion here, then maybe make an appearance. So it's a growing process. You know, don't think because you're not able to do it today that you won't be able to do it tomorrow. Learn from someone. Learn the good from that person. Learn things that you don't like that they do, and learn from other people. You can, I think, once you learn and you know your profession, then you will make money in this field. As
Yogi Berra said, you can see a lot just by watching.
Yeah.
It's very true.
So, I mean, divorce attorneys, they get a bad rap.
And so do real estate brokers.
Yeah. What made you want to be a divorce attorney, and what's some good things about your job, and what are some of the worst things about your job?
I became a divorce attorney by mistake. You know, I got retained on a divorce. It was a small one. I did a decent job, and I was referred person after person. Then an attorney picked me up, and I started doing higher-end divorces, and that's how I got into my field. Again, like I told you, I sat a lot of years just in courtrooms watching. You know, people try custody cases, people try issues of real estate. I even watched negotiations in rooms about property and how it will be disposed of. You know, look, I see something different every day. If you like watching The Real Housewives of New Jersey, as my girlfriend, I told her, come to the courtroom and watch my life for a few hours.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
You'll see it
so
firsthand. It's entertaining, but you know what? At the end of the day, help good people move on. You know, this is a time in their life that's stressful. There's emotions, there's decisions, and you know, just as a real estate agent has an effect on these people, I have an effect. These people are depending on me to construe an agreement for them that will help them survive post-marriage. You know, some people are so frightened. What's my financial situation after? How am I going to live? And my job is to try to figure out how to set them up for success after the marriage. So it's important, even as an agent, to really take the task at hand seriously, because these people are relying on you as an attorney to make an agreement that is as airtight as it can be, and also set them up. And I think on the agent side, I don't know if you guys agree, but you know, they're depending on you to try to market the house in its best light, try to get them the best dollar that they can get for their property, because that might be money that they might need to survive on for a while.
Which brings up a good point. This is early in my career. We were walking through, I was representing some buyers. We were walking through a house, and the seller was home. She was on the phone in her kitchen, and she was clearly very upset. We walked through the house. We walked into what was clearly the master bedroom. Two walk-in closets. One of them was empty. We walked into another room, looked like a study or a den, empty. Some rooms were furnished, some weren't. And I turned to the folks and I said, you know what? This is a divorce. And what ended up happening was the buyer wanted to put the screws to them, and we came in about 10% less than what they would have paid otherwise, just armed with that information. So I think one of the crucial things, speaking as a real estate broker, is that if there's any way to avoid disclosing that this is a divorce when you're marketing the property, putting the property in its best light, do not disclose that it is a divorce if you can help it, because that telegraphs to the public, this is distress, these people have to sell, and let's take advantage of them.
And I don't know what all the disclosure rules are as a realtor, but even, you know, as the real estate agent, sit there, if you both represent both spouses, or if either one realtor represents both spouses, or if you have two real estate agents representing both spouses, sit down with the client and say, listen, we need to present a unified front. Just as in the legal field, I try to pick up on weaknesses, and like you said, you were able to come in 10% less. You know, you need to talk to these people, talk with your clients. And sometimes you have to be a little harsh with them, saying, look, we need to present a unified front here.
Absolutely.
Because if we don't, you could lose this house, you could sell this house, you'll sell it, but at a much less value than what we probably could get for it.
Yeah, it could become a short sale.
Right. So I think it's important for the brokers to know who they're dealing with, sit your clients down, have control over your clients. That's the biggest thing in my field. Have control over your clients and guide them. Let them know that you're there for their best interest. You're not trying to hurt them. You're trying to help them in this process.
Now, are there any other options? Say I passed the prenup, I'm married already, 2 years into my marriage, everything seems fine, but I hear this radio conversation and I'm like, you know what, I wish I did get a prenup. I'm not looking to get a divorce. Me and my wife are getting along fine. Is there anything we could do to say, I wish I had a prenup? Is there anything an agreement that could be drafted that could kind of protect both of our assets after the fact?
Absolutely. It's called a postnuptial agreement. It's like a prenup. There would need to be disclosure. You know, it's a little more difficult after the marriage because now there's really no out for the other person. If you really don't want to sign a prenup prior to your marriage, well, the other party can say, you know what, I'm done with this, I'm walking away from the marriage. It's a little harder, don't you think, once you're married? You're like, well, now we're here we are 3 years later, where do I go?
It's an even less romantic.
Hey,
Right.
Can we talk?
Yeah, by the way, here's the papers. It's not divorce papers, it's a postnuptial agreement. You can. Again, you would need to get both attorneys. The courts do frown upon it a little bit more because now there's not as much of an arm's length transaction. But again, you should have attorneys on both sides, disclosure of assets, and how everything will be divided. But you can do it. You know, I think another topic that we just you had raised before, and I want to go back to it, that I thought was important.
Sure.
You say, you know, people are living under the same roof. Well, sometimes even though one party moves out, you know, and the house doesn't sell, what happens when both parties are on the note in the mortgage? You know, we were talking about
Absolutely.
that.
You've got liability across the table there.
Right. So let's say in the settlement agreement, I think it's important you say to yourself, okay, I'll let one spouse stay in there and live there with the children until she or he can refinance. Now, as an attorney, I always try to not make it more than 60 days to give one spouse to try to refinance, because remember, if you're on the note and your spouse misses a payment, now you're on the hook for that. So I think those are important things to think about when you're getting divorced with your attorney, and also, you know, if an agent is involved with you.
Another important thing we got to think about is paying the bills here. So we're going to take a quick break. You're on WRCR, the Real Estate Revolution, at 1700 AM, and we will be back right after this. And we are back on the Real Estate Revolution on 1700 AM, WRCR Radio, broadcasting worldwide and throughout the Milky Way galaxy. I'm here with Marco Fava. Fava or Favo?
Fava.
Fava.
Like the bean.
Like the bean, okay. Who is our colleague and divorce attorney discussing the real estate ramifications of divorce. And I can tell you, Marco, as a J. Philip Ferranda, my name gets killed all the time. I'm Phil Fernandez, I'm Jay, blah, 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 you know. So we talked about disclosure, and it's funny, we often have the same phrase as well, disclosure, disclose, disclose, disclose. And we talked about the ramifications as a listing agent representing divorcing home sellers, the danger of disclosing the reason that they're selling. And it's hard to fathom where it would be good advice to actually disclose that it is a divorce. And I would actually say that it is probably the real estate agent's job to not let that get out under any costs. And even if the seller says, look, we just want to sell, we just want to dump this place, you can tell people that it's a divorce. It's almost our obligation to tell them, I would advise you not to do that, because the downside is far further down than any upside you might get, because we can't shed our client's predicament in a negative light.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, and sometimes you will get clients that will come in and say, I even have them, just get me divorced. I don't care. I'll give up everything. I'll walk away from everything. I just want to get this over with.
Right, right.
And it's for me to sit them down and say, look, I advise against that. Here's the reasons why. There's this pitfall. Here's how, you say today, I don't care about that money from the house, but, if there's equity of about, let's say $500,000 and you can come into $250,000, that sets you up a long way to get your life back on track, doesn't it?
It sure does.
And I think just as a broker, I think you need, or an agent, you need to sit down with your client and say, look, I'm here to help you. I understand you want to get this over with, but let me explain to you the ramifications of the way you want to do it. Let me give you my professional advice. I've seen this over the years. Here's what I can do for you. Just the way I do with my clients. And then if they still want to go, I always tell my clients, you're the boss at the end of the day. If this is the way you want me to proceed, I will proceed. I will put it in a long letter saying that it's against my advice, what we're about to do. And sometimes have them sign a letter or just put it in an email and say, look, I've advised you this, but this is the way you want to proceed. I will proceed according to your wishes. But I think as an agent is the same thing. Sit them down, tell them the options that you believe are the best way of selling that home. And then if they want to do otherwise, cover it and just tell them you will proceed the way you want to, but it will not probably produce the best result for you.
So you have essentially, covered your own liability and given them the best advice. You can sleep at night knowing you gave them the best advice.
Right, you can sleep at night, and I tell people sometimes, I say, if you don't want to listen to my advice, why are you hiring me? Or why are you hiring anyone else? Because there are people that come in and say, well, I know what I'm doing. Okay, well then, here you go.
I could get you $2 million.
Here's your file, and, represent yourself.
Yeah, so the first step for an agent would be to request the settlement agreement first, right? See what's in that, and then sit down with them and make sure that what the stipulations are. So if it's all right, we have to sell within 5% of the price, to review the stipulations, then what? And then just continue to market it.
Well, I think, when one of the spouses goes to see the agent, they should be truthful and say, what the ramifications are. Maybe show them portions of the agreement, or give them authority to speak with one of the spouse's attorneys, so that and give them authority to speak to the agent, saying, here's what the parameters are of the sale. And then, do what the agreement says. If it says the listing price shall be at this price, or it'll be listed at pursuant to an appraisal, or to whatever the broker thinks, and then every 60 or whatever days are in the agreement, if there is anything like that, it'll be lowered by 3%, 60 days out, another 30 days out, another 3%, until you've done 3 reductions, and then the parties cannot agree on a new price, then go back to court. I mean, we try, in my agreements, I try to take care of reductions for almost up to a year.
Wow. Can you imagine a year to sell a house? that sounds,
It's a long time, but we try to make it so that the parties don't have no say in the price at this point. But at least we're saying, look, we're going to guide you down this road, and so that you don't have to make the decisions.
Now let me ask you this. Let's suppose we're brought in earlier in the process and there is no settlement agreement. Should we tell them get a settlement agreement and then list the house, or what should we do?
If a buyer comes to you and says, I'm in the middle of divorce and I want to sell my house, I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole.
Really?
As an agent. Here's why. Because you're not allowed to sell the house. There's a stay on everything. So unless someone can show you a court order that allows you to sell the house, one spouse cannot walk into your office and say, please sell my house, I'm in the middle of a divorce.
What if they both want to sell? What if the husband and wife both agree, I know them both, pals, whatever.
I would still have their attorneys draft up even an interim stip. You can do interim stips in the middle of a divorce saying, we've agreed that we're going to start placing the house on the market, now, in the middle of the divorce, and get it so ordered by a judge so that this event can happen, and make sure if they're going to do this that all the ancillary issues are resolved. How much each party is going to get from the sale, and things of that nature.
So even if you come into it and it seems like everybody's in harmony, without that, interim agreement, you could waste your time because some other issue comes up, or the whole deal. You can be under contract and the deal will die because you've wasted all your time and because you didn't cover your bases.
Right. I mean, let's take for example, here we are, both parties, like you said, are in harmony. They come in, they say, don't worry about it, we don't need an agreement, we're in the middle of a divorce. And let's say one spouse all of a sudden finds a paramour Now, what sounded to be such a easy deal becomes something that now is tumultuous, and I'm not giving you 50% anymore because you're screwing around and this and that, and now what you thought was easy has become a disaster.
Such a nice word, that Paramore. So we're getting close to the end, and I'd love for the audience to have a way of contacting you. What is the best way to reach you?
My office is located at 670 White Plains Road, Suite 207, Scarsdale, New York,
Okay.
10583. They can reach me on my office phone, 914-722-0422, or by email at favalaw@gmail.com, and it's FAVALAW@gmail.com.
That one's easy. Tony, what's the best way to reach you?
At my email, tony@kwcommercial.com, or my phone, 914-438-1476.
Okay, I am J. Philip Ferranda, and that is a wrap. You can find out about me at jphilip.com. We will be back next week at 6 p.m. sharp for another edition of the Real Estate Revolution. Marco, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, guys. It was a real pleasure.
We will see you all next week.